Peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. First and foremost, let's talk about how some students in the state of Alabama have decided, said enough is enough. They walked out on a Black History program because it wasn't really talking about Black history. We'll break it down and also give you an ask the question, should students protest what's going on around the teaching of Black history? We'll have that conversation with you. Also at 3:30, we're going to be checking in with the sports national sports columnist from Forbes.com to give us the latest about a number of sports topics, from everything from LeBron James to two Black quarterbacks in the Super Bowl, and what does it really mean? Later on, I check in with my culture crew. Very excited. We got Rashad and Corinna Denise that's going to be joining us as we talk about some other cultural topics about such as Black folks and religion, how the Catholic Church has decided to put out some pamphlets around to show more diversity. But I might have a problem with that. We got that and a whole lot more. So stay with us. It's all happening on today's edition of Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Woo! Folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. First and foremost, folks, happy Friday. Happy Friday. It is the end of the week, and we got some great conversations lined up for you. Make sure y'all join us as we having these discussions on air. You can join the conversation. Just make sure that you join us in our chat as we're streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, as well as blackstarnetwork.com. We would love to hear from you. And of course, for my crew, I'm definitely going to pull your comments as we have these discussions. So be ready, prepared for that. All right, folks, let's talk about the first thing. As we have been talking about this on the show over the past few weeks, how there has been a number of efforts around the country, starting in Florida and other states, that have been prohibiting certain elements of Black history from being taught. Now, we may see a turning of the tide as Black students have said enough is enough. This is the case in one school district in Alabama, as students decided to be a part of a Black history program, but they were told that they could not speak on certain elements of Black history, such as the transatlantic slave trade and other moments of our history. This happened, and so they decided to essentially walk out. Now, this happened at a school where hundreds of students from Hillcrest High School, and I want you to take a look at this, folks. This is the latest from what's happening down there. Hillcrest High School, they protested outside of the school's campus because of restrictions placed on Black History Month. The students say the administration is refusing to teach key parts of Black History Month, like the Civil Rights Movement and slavery. Wow. Now, look, folks, I'm not saying that that's all of our history. We truly understand that, right? Like, we always have a conversation saying that that is not the only thing that Black folks have been. That's not the only experience for Black people in this country, civil rights and slavery. But they are important experiences that we cannot exclude from the conversation. So what these students did, what they protested outside of the school's campus and demanding for the topics to be covered in the course. Now, take a look here. This is what one student leader say. Her name is Jemiah Brown. She told the media outlet, she said, quote, "I feel like it's important to talk about that because I feel like in 2023, a lot of our young people, our youth, don't know their culture." She said, a lot of our youth don't know how empowerment, take a look here. She said, a lot of our youth don't know how empowerment has brought us this far. This is important to educate our youth on how we came from somewhere to now. Now, on Wednesday morning, students walked out the front door of the school around 9:30 a.m. The crowd of more than 200 students eventually made their way to the street, shouting for their concerns to be heard. Now, the demonstration was deemed peaceful, but according to WBCR, the crowd grew large enough that a deputy sheriff had to block part of the road in front of the school to keep students safe. The protest ended after 40 minutes with students returning to their classrooms to carry out the rest of the day. And so for us to have a conversation about this. Is this the best way for students to handle this situation? Now, we have talked about, of course, the efforts that Governor Ron DeSantis has been doing down in Florida. We saw Benjamin Attorney Crump's response to that, bringing students to the forefront of the efforts to keep certain elements of Black history from being excluded with those AP courses. We are hearing now that more schools across this country are pushing back in a lot of these Republican-controlled states. They're pushing back against teaching Black history, certain elements, especially during this time of year. We've been hearing about other people. We've heard from parents. We haven't talked about this story in much depth, folks, but there are, and I'm going to pull up where in one state, parents are given, basically they are empowered to say whether they want their child to learn Black history or not in some schools. So we hear from politicians, we've heard from parents, we've heard from some staff and student and community and school leaders, but now we're hearing from students, and I'm speaking of Black students who are saying enough is enough. Would you support your son, your daughter, your niece, your nephew, if they said, mom, dad, auntie, uncle, grandma, granddad, hey, they're not teaching the full element of Black history, I walked out? Folks, I want to hear what your take is on this subject and make sure that you post your comment in the chat section or as we're streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and of course, Black Star Network. But would you support students walking out of school, missing a day, possibly getting into some sort of trouble or suffering some consequences because the school may not want to teach them the full history or the larger history of the Black experience, especially during Black History Month? I want to hear what you got to say, so let's jump right in. All right, let's just work it out right here. Real Brooklyn checking it in, starting us off this afternoon. Real Brooklyn, good to hear from you, bro. You say, simply put, Black history is American history. If you don't know Black history, then you don't know American history. American history without Black history is American mythology. Yes, I'm with you, Real Brooklyn. I'm with you. And you know what? I truly believe that folks who are stopping or trying to fight history, they understand this. They know this, but they, in their warped mind, Real Brooklyn, you don't know it and I know it. They are afraid. They are afraid of empowering this generation because this generation is a very fearless generation. And I thought the generation that I came from, we were pretty fearless. But this generation is fearless and in very unpredictable, unconditional type of way, where they're like, you know what? Race does matter. This is a problem, and this is how I'm going to handle it. And guess what? You're not going to say anything. You're not going to object to it. So this is a different spirit that we're seeing coming from young people today. And also, folks, just want to let you know, of course, that we have made that big announcement a few weeks ago. We are absolutely streaming on Amazon News right now as well. So make sure that you tell your family and friends that they can tune in today as well. But let's go back to the comments from you as my culture crew. And Real Brooklyn, I appreciate you for making that explicitly clear. Black history is American history. Facts. Shalinda, my sister, you say, hey, fam, many young people have no idea about our history. I say yes. Right. I'm with you, Shalinda. I say yes. I've actually supported students who walked out. Look, what's the point? And I know there are some people, and if you feel strong about on the other side saying, no, that's not right. Students should not walk out. They should handle this differently. Please, by all means, let's share your thoughts around that, right? Because I understand it. But I've been a part of student protests. And guess what? I applaud students who decide to make that move. You know, personally, I applaud it. Because what's the point of education, right? If your education is not worth fighting for, then what are we teaching students? Okay, so let me go back to that question. If your education is not worth fighting for, then what are you teaching them then? Just to quote, repeat, memorize, and then say it back to you again? You got to have a very real education that empowers. All right, let's go to this one. Let's go to Tiana. Tiana, you checked in. You said the slave trade needs to be taught. It's American history. We didn't come over on a day cruise. Facts. How can you forget that? How can you eliminate the transatlantic slave trade from during the teaching of Black history, hell, American history? How can that be done? How can you really say with a straight face that this country, for example, wasn't in the possession of Native Americans and then you had colonizers and other colonial individuals who came, who took over the land, decimated the Native American population in the process, and then stole a people from their homeland with the help of other groups of people to bring them here so that way they can be used as slaves and as tools to build up the country that we now call home. How is that not a part of the conversation? All right, look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, more of your thoughts as we continue the conversation. What's your take on students protesting, Black students protesting at one high school because they are being told that certain elements of Black history will not be taught, will not be discussed, and the students said enough is enough. Do you agree with the students walking out of their school in protest? Share with me your thoughts, and as we come forward, we'll continue the conversation. Stay with me. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We have been talking about how some students at a local high school is now doing their part to protest this latest attack on history. This is a set of high schoolers from Hillcrest High School, folks. They are now pushing back on this idea that they can't learn the true history about Black folks in this country. And guess who's leading the charge? Black students. So I'm asking the question because we talked about what the political leaders are doing. We're talking about what parents have said about this situation. But now we get to hear from the mouths of babes themselves when they say enough is enough. We need to learn our history. A lot of young people don't know their history. And they're speaking of other Black young people who don't know their history. And it's important to be taught in schools. What's the purpose of school if you can't be taught history? Something that has already passed. And folks, I was reading one quote from one student. It made perfect sense to me. She said the administration is getting upset with us about something that has already happened. How do you make sense of that? How do you get mad about history that has already happened? At this point, you should be figuring out how do we make sure we don't repeat those lessons. But guess what? That's not happening in America right now, folks. So students have decided to take matters into their own hands and walk out. Would you support this? Do you agree with this method to get folks' attention? Folks, make sure you post your comments in the chat as we're streaming live from Facebook, YouTube, Black Star Network, and of course, you can check us out on Amazon News now. All right, folks, let's get back to what you got to say. My God, truth is power. You said, Farajii, if you talk to your children that they are better than everybody else, why would you teach them a history proving that they're just as equal as the other? And Black people, do you keep studying up with you're studying keep up with these mothers of liberty? They have stopped a lot of the Black history curriculum in schools by themselves. Mothers of liberty. So a couple of points that you bring up in there, Truth is Power. You talked about this idea that why would you teach your children that they're equal to other people? Well, and I guess that gets to the root of white supremacy, right? That you teach your children that you're better, that, you know what, the Black kid is there because of a special program or special opportunity, that you're still innately better, that you're still much smarter. Even though that child may actually believe otherwise, because we're not in the classroom. So we don't know if that white child is actually answering all the questions or they comprehend the information, right? Versus that Black child. But a Black child now is being burdened to process all of these things, right? In a very crazy way. And I think that's the point, Truth is Power, that you're making, which is an excellent point. But look at how you put that burden on a child to try to figure out. You tell them they're better, but the child knows that they have some strengths, and then they also know they have some things they need to improve on, some weaknesses. But if you keep pumping their head, you're better because you're white, you're better because you're of your social status, you're better because of your economic status, then the child is going to eventually believe it, but they're not going to fully embrace it. They might say, oh, okay, but they know deep down inside. And it creates conflict. See, that level of, indoctrination creates conflict for anybody, whether you're Black or white. On the other side, if a Black child constantly thinks that he or she is inferior, that they don't have the mental and the mental capacity or capabilities to do work or to learn a certain way, or they just don't understand their learning style. And they say, oh, well, I'm stupid because Johnny, he understood these concepts and I didn't, not knowing that everybody learns differently. That Johnny might be strong in that subject, but you might be stronger in a different subject. A lot to put on a child. All right, let me go back to what you got to say, crew. Janelle, you checked in and Truth is Power. My God, thank you. You said, Janelle, all students need to be empowered to demand every bit of information without censorship so that they can be as ready as possible for the world. Parents are snowflakes being driven by outside funds. Parents are snowflakes being driven by outside funds, Janelle. That's a harsh criticism, but you might be too right there. Too right for a Friday. You're right. And that's the part about this whole process. It's like we are shooting ourselves in the foot when we don't teach our students, our young people, true history. Because guess what, folks? There's this little thing called, what is that called? Time. Where they are going to actually grow up to be adults. And if they are messed up in the head from their childhood, they become messed up adults. And as they get older, what's that other thing that affects us? Oh, time. We get older. So then we have to rely on a future that don't know what's going on or who they are. Can you imagine? That's a domino effect. You're like, if you destroy the mind of a child, if you lie to a child, if you don't provide opportunities for a child to feel empowered, then guess what? You are essentially shooting your own self in the foot because you're not going to be around. We're not all going to be around for a long time. And they are the ones that's supposed to carry on the work. They're supposed to be the ones that carry on the burdens, and they are the ones that's supposed to walk into the sunset when our time has come. So what future are we ensuring that? Do you truly believe that Black people are not going to be in the future? Y'all, you're watching too much of the Jetsons. Yeah, you don't think Black people are going to exist in the future. What? Please. Our future is already written in the stars. But the future of this country is still being determined. The jury is still out. So we can play these games now, but the implications, the consequences going forward are too much for us to truly handle. Let me go back to what folks are saying. All right, I appreciate you, Janelle. Thank you for bringing that point up. Karen, my sister, you say, look, I agree with the students protesting. They are expected to deny who they are and their ancestry. Students from non-Black races are not told to deny their ancestry, and their ancestry is celebrated. Right. So here might be the other thing, Karen, that I don't know that folks may be considering. It's like the old principle of telling a child that they can't do something, right? So you tell your child, the baby, the child in your family, that they can't grab a cookie. Now their desire for the cookie becomes even greater because now you told them not to, right? It's a natural human thing. You tell us we can't do something, and now we become emboldened. It's like, no, I am going to do this because nobody can tell me what to do. Okay, so now if you tell Black children that they can't learn about their history, they can't learn about who they are, they can't know where they're from, then what do you think that that's going to do? Now, a few of them might capitulate. So a few of them might say, okay. But I think a lot of them will say, well, why don't you don't do that for other students in the class. So what is it about my history that you don't want me to know in this present day moment? And then now you are starting to really feed the desire to learn, because why? You're telling them that you can't learn this history is bad. Now you're forcing the student to think critically, and they're going to feel more compelled to dig deeper into what is it about my history that is such a threat, is such a problem for this administration. No one else's history gets scrutinized like mine, but my history does. What is it? And now they're searching, not just looking to learn, but now they're searching to find some power that they can gain from learning their history. Look, I think it's going to backfire. I think it's going to backfire on a lot of people in a big, big way, and folks won't know how to handle it. Do you know what happened? And think about this, folks, very quickly as we wrap this part of the conversation. Do you remember the time when you were first exposed to something very deep and very conscious, that how it opened you up? It might be something very small. Like you realized that Santa Claus wasn't real, right? And how that opened you up. And now as a grown adult, you look back and you're like, man, I really believe that. I really believe that the Easter Bunny was real, or I really believe this, or I really believe that. But when your mind is exposed to some level of truth, some level of knowledge, and your eyes are open, you feel like a totally different human being. And you feel so empowered. And more importantly, you feel like you have more substance to you. You feel like a greater sense of purpose. What do you think you're doing for these Black children? Yes, like I said, some may capitulate. Some may say, oh, okay, we can't learn it. But those around them say, no, we are going to learn this. And I know why they don't want us to learn. You're shooting yourselves in the foot. Not only will that, I see that happening with Black students, that could also happen with white students. Because white students can ask the question, why don't they want you to learn your history? I know mine. So why can't you? The Asian students, why don't they want to talk about Black history the same way they talk about Asian American history? Or why the Latino student? Now you creating a desire in other students to learn about Black history, which is fine, which is good. but it may be in opposition to your original intent. See, we're living in that type of moment in this country where you thinking you going down one road, you thinking you blocking somebody, but the truth always comes out. You can't stop light from emerging from darkness. You can't. You can't block the sun. So we're in this space, in this country, in this culture where we try to stop stuff from happening. Folks, it's happening. It's happening. And the more you fight it, look how, real quick, the more you fight it, you look like a person trying to fight the rays of the sun. You look foolish. You look silly. You look like a person who will never win the match. Look, I got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's switch gears. Thank y'all so much for checking in and being a part of that conversation. We're going to be checking in with my brother Terrence Moore, who is a national sports columnist with Forbes.com, talking about all things sports on Super Bowl weekend. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
An angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Welcome back to the show. I'm very excited because we got so much to talk about for this next segment, which is the segment of covering sports. It is Super Bowl weekend. It is an historic weekend for the NFL as two black quarterbacks match up, go head to head. And this, you know, it's hard to figure out who you want to win. You want to see them both come out on top, but actually both of these brothers, Jalen Hurts, the quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles, and Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs, they have already won. They have already won. We know there's going to be a winner and a loser in this game, but in pushing the conversation about race and football to the next level, and talking about black excellence, talking about the stigma of the black quarterback, they have blown those conversations apart. Look at those brothers, man. Hailing from Texas, they are greatness. Young black men who are the faces of the NFL. This is who we're expected to see just throw down on Sunday. And again, folks, it doesn't matter who wins, they already are winners to me. But I wanted to talk to my brother Terrence Moore to get us some more insight from him to understand the dynamics of this whole conversation and so much more, because just as much as these brothers are winning, We already saw earlier this week, LeBron James has come out on top and being now crowned as the all-time scorer, surpassing the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who passed the ball, slashed the baton on to him for continuing that great, breaking that record and continuing that legacy and so much more. So we want to welcome to the airways of Black Star Network here on The Culture, Terrence Moore from Forbes.com. Terrence, thank you for checking in, bro.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, Terrence, you've been covering sports. You've been doing this for a long time, but this is different. This is two young black quarterbacks. These aren't veteran quarterbacks. These are brothers who are really, I would still say, we could say that they're at their prime because they're at the Super Bowl, but I think we might still get another 2 or 3 appearances from these brothers before it's all said and done and at the Super Bowl level. What do you make of it?
I mean, there's no doubt about that. I mean, you take Patrick Mahomes. I love Patrick Mahomes.
Man, I
think about this. Yeah, I mean, how can you not like him? For so many reasons, but just from a football standpoint, longevity, and let this sink in. He's already won his second MVP in 6 years. I mean, that's absolutely phenomenal. So he's got a long way to go. 3rd time in the Super Bowl in 4 years. He's already won one of them. So, Jalen Hurts still got a ways to go, but as far as if you just project greatness that's on the horizon, it's Patrick Mahomes for sure.
He's and there are a couple of things that when I see him, but then I see who's around him. I see how the life that he lives. He's married. He has a family. He seems very stable. He's of course he has his mom and his dad, his family on that side. Then he has his football family of the Kansas City Chiefs. It seems like he is really the recipient of all of these ingredients, Brother Terrence, of everything that you're supposed to do, right? He's not out there. He's not flashy type of guy. I mean, he has, of course, his $1 million endorsements with various companies, but he's just one of these guys. But you don't hear from him too much, right? He's not as quote unquote vocal as probably some of the other players in the league, but there is something that you still find, and there is some groundedness to him that I really like. We got the Brother Terrence.
Impressive things I've ever seen at a Super Bowl. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, well, I got you.
Had a bad feed here because I'm in Arizona, so with the desert, who knows what's going on with all the weird things in the atmosphere. But anyway, I've covered more than 30 Super Bowls, and I was there, needless to say, when he won the Super Bowl. I had his first time out. And what I found so amazing was after that game, he gets up there before the media, and it was like a natural. It was almost like he had done this for 1,000 years. And you can say a lot of that, as you just pointed out, is his upbringing, but most of it is him. He is just that dude. This guy that's just totally natural. Just like the other day at the press conference, he was answering questions, and he was being funny. He was being serious. It was just like he just made for this moment. When you see him, it's like a natural fit. He's not trying to be anybody except for Patrick Mahomes.
Right. Now, there are some people that have been having this conversation about black quarterbacks, Brother Terrence. One of the big conversation is they haven't, like in certain media outlets, they talked about Jalen, they talk about Patrick, they talk about a couple of them, but they haven't included Cam Newton. And some folks are kind of like, why aren't we including Cam Newton? And part of me is starting to think, is it because Cam Newton doesn't fit the quote unquote the profile of the black quarterback that the NFL wants to put their marketing machine behind? We saw how he responded when he lost his Super Bowl game, and he was mad. I mean, I get it, folks. I mean, you don't work that hard to get to that level, and then you lose, and you're going to be the happiest person in the world. But how should we look at that kind of what some people would call a snub on Cam Newton and his ascendancy to the Super Bowl?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you, and I try to be fair with this. I've been a professional sports journalist for more than 45 years, and if you don't treat people right, you're going to get what you're going to get. And I'm talking about Cam Newton. Now, Cam Newton, we all know what he can do on the field. And I was at the Super Bowl when he lost and he blew off the media. You just can't do that. And if you do that, you should expect the consequences. And, and that's why, they'll go back to a guy like a Patrick Mahomes. Not saying everybody's got to be that way, but again, Cam basically, and I'm from Atlanta. That's why I work in Atlanta, so I'm familiar with the story, following since high school. If he was a little bit more congenial, then a lot of things that has happened to him and that's not happened to him, as you just say, on the negative, wouldn't have happened. And so I would say that a lot of that has to do with just the attitude he had with the media and with people in general, and it kind of caught up to him not only during his career, but we see it after his career. Like you say, he should be getting a lot more pub and publicity and credit for what he did, which was phenomenal in many respects, not only in the NFL, but sort of at Auburn and at college. But a lot of what his attitude was back then and throughout the National Football League hurt him even now in his post-career.
Wow. So how do you have conversations like that? Because now we're seeing this more and more, that players, they have, exquisite talent, right, when it comes on the field. But then their off-field persona or their media relationship, it doesn't quite add up to the brilliance and the excellence that they show on the field. Like how do you prepare, particularly black athletes? How do you prepare them for that?
Well, and that's a very deep question. And I'm going to give you an example. For the few of us who are in the business, and particularly and few of us who have been veterans like me, what I've done through the years, I've tried to help people and just pull them aside unofficially. It's not part of my job description, but I'll give you a classic example. Back in 2001, I'm very close with Andrew Young. And of course, people listening know who Andrew Young is. Dr. King's right-hand man back in the old days, former mayor of Atlanta, the second black mayor in history of Atlanta, former UN ambassador. And Andrew Young also was on the board of directors of the Atlanta Falcons. So back in 2001, it was at a training camp, and it was after one of the sessions, and Andrew Young calls me onto the field and says, "Hey, we need to go talk to number 7. Number 7 being a guy by the name of Michael Vick." We sat there for 45 minutes to an hour telling Michael the do's and don'ts of how to handle his life, off the field and handling the media and those type of things and what have you. And Andrew Young even said that you need to go to his church, pointing to me. And so we communicated that way. And of course, as time went on, a lot of things, not most of the things that Andrew and I talked to him about, just went here and went here. Okay. And to his credit, though, as Michael Vick grew older past the dogfighting thing, as we all know, he looked back on his life and it was like, I wish I would have. And I'm not taking credit for this. I'm not saying he should have listened to me or Andy or what have you, but he knew at that moment after his career that had he paid attention to some of the things that people that were out there trying to help him along the way, things would. But it's got to be the athlete or the individual or celebrity. They've got to want to listen and to take heart of what we're saying.
And y'all was just saying that. Y'all was just saying that from a brother to brother standpoint, not from a writer,
exactly
not from a political leader. That's like, look, man.
Not in my job description. That was not in my job description. Okay, and it wasn't anything I wrote about. It was just something. And I just mentioned that because it's something that people know. I've done that with more than a few athletes through the years. Okay, and again, I'm not putting myself on a pedestal. I'm just saying that there are some of us, many of us, and not even just from a sports writer standpoint or what have you. We do that, and that has been done. But if you're hearing that, if people are trying to help you, you're not listening. I mean, in the word of Flavor Flav back in the old days, can't do nothing for you, man. I mean, so that's what it turns out to be sometimes.
Hey, Brother Terrence, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, I want to get your insight on how all of this talk about black quarterbacks, how does fit with the ongoing narrative around Colin Kaepernick. Now, we know Colin Kaepernick, at this point, he's pretty much out of the NFL, right? He's still making moves. He's still making an impact. He's still doing what he needs to do. But does he get lost, or is he another focal point of this conversation? I would love to kind of pick your brain to get your take on that. And
yeah, real quick, and in addition to that, I'm also going to tell you why people are missing a huge point, black quarterback thing, and they're letting the NFL off the hook. But we'll talk about that too.
Let's do it, brother. Look, folks, I'm tuned. I got my brother Terrence Moore, national sports columnist for Forbes.com. He's down in Phoenix right now covering the Super Bowl as that happens this weekend, and he's joining us for a few minutes here on The Culture as we talk about black quarterbacks and so much more black excellence in sports. Stay with us. The conversation continues right here on The Culture, right here on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Folks, we've been talking to Terrence Moore, national sports columnist with Forbes.com, as we talk about black excellence in sports. Terrence is down in Phoenix, Arizona right now, covering and preparing for the Super Bowl. And as we have the conversation about black excellence, we're just definitely discussing the fact that you have two young black quarterbacks who are at the center of attention for this year's Super Bowl. There you see on in the green for the Philadelphia Eagles, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs on the other side. And these are two dynamic black players who have taken football all the way to the top. They hail from the same place, and yet they are facing each other. And like I said, folks, and even though, of course, you got a winner and a loser in this game, both of these brothers have definitely won. Let's get back to my man, Terrence Moore from Forbes.com. Hey, brother Terrence, so let's talk about Colin Kaepernick, right? Because it's interesting that his story never died. Like, I mean, it's just every year since he took that great stand, it's a conversation about Kaepernick is popping up somewhere. And it's, as one who studies media, I'm a student of the game. I'm like, wow, talk about impact. So what's the big thing you said that the big thing that folks are having a conversation about black backs, especially in the...
Well, one of the problems that we have, I'm talking about as black folks, sometimes we get carried away by following the shiny object, because that's what white America does. That's what white media does. Let's face it, it's basically white media, all right? And that's what's going on here with this the black quarterback thing. And I dare say I'm the only person who wrote the counter to what's been written and talked about all of this. Because what the NFL wants us to do, what society wants us to do, is to feel good. Oh, gee whiz, we got these black quarterbacks starting for the first time ever. Wow, isn't that great? No, I don't think that's great. And I'll tell you why. And that's what I wrote. The National Football League has been around since 1920. I was an econ major back at Miami University in Knoxville, Ohio. But doing some quick math, I think it's over 100 years. So over 100 years, this is the first time we have two black quarterbacks. And let's do it this way. In 1946, a guy named Paul Brown integrated professional sports. Now, people out there saying, well, a year before Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier on April 15th, 1947. So the National Football League has been integrated since 1946. The National Football League, as everybody, 70% African American. It has been predominantly African American for arguably the last 50 or 60 years. So you know where I'm going with this train. This is the first time they had two black quarterbacks starting in the Super Bowl. This tells you this is an indictment against the National Football League and against society. What they're trying to cover up is the reasons why this has taken place. And one of the things I point out in my column, a lot of things, everything you want to know about what's happening, not only in the NFL or Snyder. There's probably a guy that many people out there never heard of. But I'm going to tell you who Jimmy the Greek was. He was this football analyst for CBS. And he was famous for picking games and what have you. January of 1988, he's having lunch, and he's being interviewed, and he was asked, why are black athletes so dominant? Again, this is 1988. And he said, well, it goes back to slavery, when they had these big mothers, had these big thighs, and they were birthing these big babies. So he gets fired the day after. People need to Google Jimmy the Greek Snyder, January 1988. He gets fired the day afterwards. All the media said that the reason Jimmy the Greek Snyder got fired was because of those comments. That is not why he got fired. General Constitution at the time. He got fired because of the rest of the interview, which he was saying the truth from the way a lot of whites think, and definitely a lot of people in control in the National Football League and sports and society. He was asked further. They asked him, said, so Jimmy, why aren't there any black executives in the NFL or black coaches at the time? And his response was very short, but very telling. He said, because if we give those jobs to the blacks, there wouldn't be anything left for whites to do. Here's my point in a long-winded way. I'll sum it up this way. All of these situations in sports and society where you have a lack of blacks, we get it wrong. Certainly black people, a lot of white folks get it. Okay, it's not because they don't think that we can't do it. They know we can, and they don't want that because they know that once we start doing it, that they're not going to be able to do it because they have more confidence in us than we have in ourselves sometimes. They knew that once these black quarterbacks start getting into the game and start getting a chance, that what has happened now was going to happen. And again, everything goes back to money. The 10 highest paid players in the National Football League right now, what position? Quarterback. Has always been that way, okay? The first 5 are whites. Okay, the final 5 are, well, actually, Patrick Mahomes is number 4, but five of the 10 quarterbacks are black and white, and then that mix. But what I'm saying is, the big picture is, that's the story right here, is that once Doug Williams broke the color barrier and became the first black starting quarterback in the National Football in the Super Bowl history, and I was there too, back in January 1988, that was the worst nightmare of the NFL, of sports and society, because that was a direct line from that to what we're seeing right here. And contrary to what they're trying to make us to believe, they don't like this.
That's some history there, Brother Terrence.
Yes, sir.
That's some history. And you know, I appreciate you for saying that. And I'm definitely going to take a look at Jimmy the Greek's interview, because, I mean, I think there's that ongoing fear. There's that sentiment that still exists today, right? Talking about the athleticism, the intelligence, all of that.
Exactly.
Right? From player to coaching, all of that. And we're still seeing that. Like, I just saw that Brian Flores, who filed a lawsuit, he's now, you know, I think the defensive coordinator of oh man, what's the new team that he plays for now? Oh man,
you cut out just a little bit there.
I was just trying to see. Brian Flores is the defensive coordinator for a new team,
Minnesota Vikings.
That's right, the Vikings. Vikings. Right. And so it's like there's the thing is like there's some level of progress, but then at the same time we get pushed back. So we get 2 black quarterbacks in the Super Bowl this year, but it may be another 10 years before we see this again. And that's my concern, that we might not see this ever again. And as far as you know, the NFL, is the NFL really turning the tide on its race and okay.
Not at all. Again, like I said, follow the shiny object. I mean, it's all a mirage. And you mentioned Brian Flores. And Brian Flores, they are scared to death of Brian Flores. And I just pray that Brian Flores stays Brian Flores. And what I mean by this is the National Football League made a record $18 billion with a B last year. They're the most powerful entity on the face of the earth, except for maybe the U.S. government, and maybe even then. Okay, dang. They've got a lot of power. And what the National Football League has, okay, we saw with the big thing with the concussion settlement that they had a few years ago with all these players, where they gave them $1 billion to go away. They haven't totally gone away, but they're still there. $1 billion for the National Football League under their seat cushions, okay? Brian Flores, for those who don't know, Brian Flores was the head coach of the Miami Dolphins and got discriminated against. He got fired for no reason except that he was, in their minds, being an uppity you-know-what. And so he files this lawsuit against the National Football League for the discrimination, and it went beyond him. We had some other coaches join the lawsuit. Should be way more than have joined, but that's a whole nother discussion. And so what the NFL has been doing ever since Brian Flores filed this lawsuit behind the scenes is trying to get him to settle. How about this much? How much this? How about that? And every single time Brian Flores says, no, I'm going to see this through. If Brian Flores sticks to his guns, this could be, if not the most explosive, certainly one of the most explosive things ever happened to the National Football League, because they do not want this thing to get to the point where people have to start testifying on what they know and that sort of thing. I mean, that would be very, very costly to the National Football League. So they're trying to pay him off. So far, Brian Flores has resisted, and that's what we got to hope that happens. That's the only way that you can see this changing a little bit. Outside of that, we're just going to be dealing with window dressing. And a lot of this stuff we're seeing is just window dressing.
Wow. Hey, Brother Terrence, we got a couple of moments left. I want to get your take on this. Do you think that Black people should support the NFL? I mean, you said that the league is 70%, 80% Black. We know the players. We understand the stand with Colin Kaepernick. Should we just totally say, you know what, the NFL is, we're done with you?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's a moot point. We're going to support the NFL. Right? Black folks are going to support. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and you know they've got the highest percentage of Black fans of any team in the National Football League. Trying to tell some Black folks in Atlanta not to follow the Falcons. I mean, you must be wrong. That is not going to happen. All right. So, but having said that, should it happen? I don't even think it should happen. I think the only way that you solve these things, you got to stay engaged. Because, and I'll tell you this real quick. You have me laughing. You're talking about the Jetsons in the last segment, okay? And a lot of time, art kind of projects, society. And people may know that a lot of things in The Simpsons, people talk about projects the future. The other day, and for those who don't know, the Jetsons are a cartoon back during my day. So in the early 60s, I was watching the Jetsons the other day, and they were showing a football game that they were playing at the time. Remember, the Jetsons are in the future, and they were robots. All the robots were white. All of the announcers were white. Everybody in the stands, they were white. Okay, and I looked this up on the internet. This episode was 1963. In other words, these were white folks projecting the way they want the National Football League to be. Okay, wow. It hasn't been that way, obviously. But again, if you have that perspective, you understand things like that, then I think we will have a tendency to stay away from the shiny object, okay, and start looking at the symptoms and start looking at the problem.
Wow, there it is. Hey, Terrence, I thank you so much, brother, for your time. I know you're doing a hard work out in Arizona right now, and we would love to have you come back, brother, and share your thoughts on other issues, because we got to talk about like LeBron James and how big of the moment was that.
I'm a huge LeBron fan. I think as much credit as he gets, I think he's one of the 2 or 3 most underrated persons in the history of sports of all time. Wow. On the field and off the field.
Is he better than Jordan?
Yes, he is. Because Jordan was that guy on the court, but off the court, as we know, Michael Jordan was about Michael Jordan. And he certainly was not about the totality of folks, and particularly about the totality of Black folks.
There we go. Hey, Brother Terrence, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. And I look forward to reconnecting.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's get into another conversation about the Catholic Church and how they're trying to do something to encourage diversity. I'm going to share with you the details of their latest project. We're going to have our culture crew members, Corinna Denise and Rashad Staten, joining us, and a whole lot more. So stay with us. That conversation is coming up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punching!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Farajii Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Folks, welcome back to The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. I appreciate you for joining us for this these set of conversations this afternoon. First and foremost, folks, make sure y'all do your due diligence. If you've been enjoying The Culture for the first hour and have enjoyed the conversations we've been having, make sure y'all check us out on our website at blackstarnetwork.com. Your support means everything to us. And so you can check us out, get all the latest news and information, some dope content, as we are just traveling all across the country with Brother Roland and the work that he's doing and covering the conversations that a lot of media aren't covering. That's the beauty of Black Star Networks. We're there when other folks aren't. So make sure you go to our website, blackstarnetwork.com. Show your support, financial support. You can show your support by sharing the content. And most importantly, subscribe to all of our platforms on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, and make sure you keep folks coming and let folks know that Black media is here and we're here to stay. All right, folks, we wanted to have a conversation about something I found to be very, very interesting. And I have a certain view of this situation, but I wanted to bring my sister and my brother to be a part of this conversation. And this is about the church, folks. The Catholic Church, the Church of England, is trying to make an effort around pushing some new ideas and trying to bridge the gap of diversity according to the church. And the question that we're going to be asking is, will it change how we see the church and religion? So here's the story on this. The Church of England, and take a look at this. This is coming out of The Root. They're using a Black Mary and Jesus posters to help promote racial healing. I want y'all to listen to me now. This is the Catholic Bishops' Conference of England and Wales. They hope a new series of posters will encourage, quote, reflection on how we are all made in the image of God. Look at that. A Black Mary, Black Jesus. All right. Now, here's the part of the story, folks, and I want to share this with you. The Church of England, they're making this effort to get into the fight for racial justice at least one Sunday a year. Now, since 1995, they have recognized Racial Justice Sunday in honor of Stephen Lawrence, who was a Black teenager who was murdered in South London in 1993. The Church of England sees the day as a time to, quote, reflect on the importance of racial justice, to give thanks for the gifts and beauty of human diversity, and to commit to end racism and acts of discrimination. Now, for this year's event, which was held on February the 5th, the Catholic Bishops' Conference of England and Wales commissioned a series of posters that depict Jesus and Mary as Black, as Asian, and Middle Eastern, in an effort to reflect the rich diversity of the church community and encourage reflection on how we are all made in the image of God. Parishes can now download a PDF of the poster of their choice and the accompanying prayer. This is very, very interesting. I want to bring in Corinna and Rashad in for this as we have this conversation and asking the question: does this help the church? Will it make things even more difficult? And will it change how we see the church and religion? First and foremost, Rashad, I wanted, before we jump in, big shout out to you, because I know you just celebrated like an anniversary of running the nonprofit organization that you running. So I just wanted to say that on air. My brother Rashad, he been doing work since he was in like high school, y'all.
Appreciate that, brother.
I've known him for a long time. So congratulations on your 1-year anniversary. But Rashad, what's your take of this, bro? With the church efforts and trying to be more inclusive, right? Having these Black and this post of Black Mary, Black Jesus, but you can get them in all colors, apparently.
All colors. Pick your hue. Pick your avatar. Yeah.
Pick a color.
I would say this, yo. I would say what I always say. In this space of time that we in, especially for our people in our community, we got to be intentional in recognizing, some wins as progress. I think their efforts in itself is standing as it's not. This is not one. Since they started this initiative in honor of a young brother that was slain in their respective country, and now that it's being 2023, it shows that it's rooted in some good intention, right? And in the world now where intersectionality, representation, imagery means the most to others in all of our identities, for them to take the efforts of creating an imagery that has your own selection of, I want to say, familiarity and identity to, the higher being of Immaculate and baby Jesus to be depicted as Black. I mean, about time. Particularly one, as you dig deeper into our historical context and you go deep into the caves and unearth things, you see that we have always been depicted in the darkest hue. So for the Catholic Church to take this and be more inclusive and to do that, I think it's a great stride. We can always say that there's much more to be done, but one step towards humanity is a step in itself. So I just acknowledge that as one. And you can see that there's some internal infrastructures that's being made. But I just like the idea, if they're now adapting and making Band-Aids to be different colors or hues to reflect the people that might be watching, now religion and spirituality aligned to that as well.
Wait, Rashad, did you wait? But hold on, bro. Hold on. Did you just?
You gotta make it make sense. Band-Aids, baby
Band-Aids
Jesus.
to the picture of Jesus and his mother, the great Mother Mary. Like brother, they could put Band-Aids. Hey, they could change Jesus' color.
Hey, I'm waiting on Santa Claus next. So
I mean, he coming. I mean, he actually is already Black in a lot of people. I've seen it in Target. So at this point, he's already, like, seriously, I've seen a big Black.
So you see this? You see the tears of progress we making?
Right. Corinna, what's your take on this? Is this a step toward progress?
I honestly have a lot of mixed feelings about it, Farajii. To Rashad's point, I appreciate the effort and them, acknowledging the diversity, but I hope that the truth will come out, right? This is like a whole nother conversation. Like, we've always been depicted this way. Are they going to debunk that this is not something that is new, that they're trying to include us now? Hair like wool, feet like bronze.
Right,
you know,
right.
So I'm kind of just have mixed feelings. I wonder what their end goal is. I hope the intention is good, but at the end of the day, I hope that they don't frame this as they're just trying to be inclusive and now suddenly they're depicting, the baby Jesus and Mary as melanated people. Because, if we look in the Bible, which we can consider to be a historical book, a lot of people are described melanated in the Bible.
Right.
And, centuries and centuries ago, there were actual depictions of baby Jesus and Mary that look just like the picture that we just saw on the screen. So I hope that, are they going to also involve some history, some background? Are you going to debunk the, blonde hair, blue-eyed white man that, we've all seen as Jesus? So I just have some mixed feelings about it, to be quite honest. But I mean, I appreciate the gesture, but I mean, only time will tell to see where is this actually going. But I hope they include the actual historical history and tie all those pieces in together and not just make it seem like, oh, we want to be inclusive, so now we're going to, to include everyone, we're going to depict it as, oh, they're melanated people, but they actually were. But
so
like I said.
So that's Corinna and Rashad, that's the part of this that I push back on, right? Like I'm all for diversity and I'm all for people seeing themselves in theology, in the theology of any religion, whether it's Christianity or Islam or Judaism. I'm all for that. But what is the actual truth?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And see, that's the part that I'm like push back on. It's like there's a difference between, it's like we talk about Santa Claus. See, Santa Claus was a fictional character from the beginning. So you can make him whatever color you want to make him. He could be Asian. He could be Latino. He's fictional. But Jesus is actually was a real person, right?
Absolutely.
So, you know what I'm saying? Like, so if Jesus is a real person, he actually did have a real nationality. He did come from, he does have real ethnicity. If Jesus was actually white, then we just have to accept that, right? Like if there is the description, there is lineage, all of those things point to the fact that he is actually a white man, then it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? It's not about skin color, it's about everything else. But that's that. But if his, like you said, Corinna, the description of Jesus is a man who had brawn, that sounds like a brown-skinned black man to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that part of that is it's a slippery slope that Rashad and Corinna, that if you start to just say, okay, make them whatever color you want to make them according to however you feel, you know what I mean? Like then you're not teaching people, you're not sharing the truth with people. For example, and I'm saying this with a very sincere space. How does the LGBTQ community see themselves in that theology? You see what I'm saying? How do you, if you're going down that road, like, oh, okay, just make him whatever color he is. Well, what is his preference? What was his lifestyle? That's the part. Now you're starting getting that slippery slope. Or, if you come from a high social economic status, make Jesus a rich man.
To your point, Farajii, I just want to add on to mentioning like the LGBTQ community. I think that group has always existed. I think from the beginning of our existence, it's just that, times have changed where we have become more accepting and, people don't have to necessarily conceal and hide anymore. But, I certainly don't think that was anything new, especially back in those days, right? But yeah, I think to your point, that is a good question. Like if we're going to start, making people appear like any way we want them to be, and not consider the historical aspect, then everyone's going to be raising these questions like, well, how does this relate to me? Can I see myself in that? What was his lifestyle, like you said? So, I think it's a little bit of a slippery slope. Like it can get convoluted very easily if they're not adding that historical background and truth to the matter, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. Look, I got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, we're going to continue the conversation talking about the Catholic Church efforts to diversify and showing baby Jesus, mother, and his mother, Mother Mary, in different hues. How do you feel about that, folks? Do you think that it will push people away from religion in the church, or will bring folks closer? I want to hear from you, my online culture crew. Make sure you post your comments in the chat as we're streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, Black Star Network, and Amazon News. And stay with us. The conversation continues right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
The 54th NAACP Image Awards is airing live on February 25th, honoring outstanding performances in film, television, theater, music, and literature. But this year, Roland Martin Unfiltered is nominated for Outstanding News or Information Series or Special. To vote, head to NAACPImageAwards.net, scroll down to Outstanding News/Information Series, select the category. You have to click on hashtag Roland Martin Unfiltered Black Votes Matter Election Night Coverage. To submit your vote, you will need an email. Only one vote allowed per email. Voting ends on February 10th at 9 p.m. Vote today.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We've been talking about the latest efforts by the Catholic Church to diversify its theology, as they have introduced a series of posters showing the mother of Jesus, Mary, and baby Jesus in different colors. Now, this one, of course, is showing Mother Mary and baby Jesus as being Black. But the church has also offered up and said that folks can download a PDF of their of these pictures and of them being Black, Asian, Latino, whatever color suits you best, as part of an effort for Racial Justice Sunday, which was celebrated on February the 5th. This comes out of the Church of England and Wales, who are looking to try to diversify its congregation and, more importantly, be a part of the progressive portion of the conversation around racial justice. I've been talking to Rashad and Corinna to get their take on this, and I want to hear from you. Post your comments in the chat, and we'll get to as many discussion points as possible as we have this talk. Corinna and Rashad, I want to get your take on this. Like, how do we make sure that as much as we want to include people into the theology, into a certain school of belief, that we just don't omit the truth, right? You know, don't just completely throw it out the window. And we go so far on the other extreme that we want to be inclusive, but then it's like, what is actually the truth? Because there's still a lot of people who don't know what the true history of Jesus, what he looked like, where he from, even though the Bible clearly said, my sister Karen said, you know, it describes it in the book of Enoch. Yep, it talks about it. You could, based upon the geographical location of where Jesus was born and all of those things, it points to the fact that he was a black man. He was a man of color, right? But then, I saw my guy, Real Brooklyn, you pointed out that, look, it doesn't matter. He's your redeemer. He's your savior. But let me just tell y'all something about race issues. And I was listening to a conversation with Tavis Smiley and another brother recently talking about race issues. Black people don't have a problem with race issues. For us, I think a lot of us would just be like, it is what it is. But white people have made race the problem. Like if we can go on without us thinking about race, and I think a lot of us would feel this way, that we would feel relieved if we didn't have to think about our blackness each and every day that we wake up. Whereas white people don't have to think about their whiteness as much, right? But we would feel relieved if we could just, because we all want to be seen for our talents, our skills, what we bring to the table. We don't have a problem. But it is white people, it is the systems of white supremacy, it is the systems of racism that has made race the predominant judgment, the major metric of how we should look at someone. So I'm just trying to process all of this, Rashad. What's your take on this, bro?
Mine is this. We know for years the detriment that the imagery of a white Jesus, and singularly being a white Jesus, has done to our people and melanated people across the diaspora, right? And that's in spite of the historical context, the accuracy of the geographical location, and what's in the word in the books of the Bible. But we have known what the systemic slavery and the imagery of a white Caesar depiction has done on our people, and made us have a sense of a overseer versus a person of higher belief in our God has done to us in our community. I take this in the perspective of, one, we now can use this as a tool to direct conversation, to reassert ourselves in history, right? 3, the other entity that it brings up for us is this level of inclusion, right? Representation. It now forces, it's like when we talk about the movies and Wakandas and everything else, and we're needing visual representation in a time when we're talking about social intersectionality. We need this. One, it's not that I learned this from Dick Gregory. He said this, and I've talked to him many times before he passed it. He said, it's not that they never told us the truth. The truth was hidden in plain sight. We just never read the book backwards to see that how we was always a part of it, right? And as you go towards, we know that in the Vatican, they have the bust of the Black Madonna, right? We know that these things are existing, but it's the limited accessibility and exposure of us not having the means to travel over there, or to have the sense of comfortability to go and say, let me see my physical representation, that by putting this on a poster, now I can assert the accuracy when I go into a classroom of a young kid in West Baltimore, right? I now have the option to pick my Black Madonna and Black Jesus over the one that Google is going to tell me is the preference.
And to that point, Rashad, and that's an excellent point, because at the end of the day, we're not going to, many people may not know that there is a bust of a Black Madonna in Rome, that there is a picture of a Black Jesus in Rome where the Vatican, where the Pope is, right? Many of us may not know that. And like to your point, we may not even have the chance to ever see that, right, face to face. But that's the thing. Like we shouldn't have to go that far to figure out the truth. The real indictment, Corinna, is the fact that the church has they do that behind closed doors, but then they preach something different. That's the real indictment. That's the real indictment. That if you're supposed to be, and this is not. If you're Catholic, you're Catholic, because we all have religion, and all religion at this point can be criticized. But my point is that the church as an institution, not as the belief system per se, but the church as an institution, governing from a space of hiding the truth. That's detrimental to your point, Rashad. That's the detrimental part. Like if you don't want to show the divinity of Black people, that is a real problem. That means that you are actually assisting in creating a dark mindset in a people who needs light, and that is a criminal act.
Right. And I just want to circle back quickly to Royal Brooklyn's point, saying, like, don't care what Jesus looks like. He's my savior. He's my redeemer. Absolutely. I understand that. But then I raised the question, well, then why didn't white folks feel that way? That they went out of their way to change his image and what he looked like instead of just giving the historical aspect. You know what I mean? Like, even the region, all of these, characteristics, there's just no way that he could have been, white hair and blue-eyed. And if he was. But I mean, historically and from what I've learned and what I know, that's just not the case. And we want to fact check that, that's another story for another day. But those are the concerns that I raise now that I see that they're actually going to be putting together these images, the historical aspect. And something else to add to that, the Catholic Church, was heavily involved in the sanctioning of enslavement. I don't know how many people know that part of history. So there's so many pieces that kind of tie in together. So my concern is that they're putting up these images, but are we going to talk history? Because we already see that, there's a deep problem with that we want to continue to conceal, what has actually happened over civilization over time. And we're kind of just changing it, in our favor, or how we want the stories to be told. So it's just a matter of not necessarily like, oh, we're Black and we have to have Black Jesus, but what is so wrong with telling the truth with historically, this is what it is. So that's just my only pushback there.
That's a major pushback. And I think back to Rashad's point, like, what is wrong with telling the truth? And look at what has happened as a result of lying, that people see more divinity in white people than they see in themselves. And I'm speaking of Black folks, right? You break Black people down. We come from the transatlantic enslavement period, that experience. Then you tell us that the person that we need to be praying to looks like our oppressor, our slave master. You see the person that's enslaved you, but then you also see the person now that is supposed to be held in high regard, respected, and revered in the Godhead. Psychologically, that can mess you up, man.
Absolutely.
That doesn't fit. So the person that I should look at as my enemy is also the person that's going to save me from my tragedy. I mean, it just doesn't fit. And people wonder, well, why Black people are so messed up in the head? Because it's by design. If you taught that Black folks that there is divinity in Black people, if we were taught that early on, and that was one of the things that were removed from us as we cross these waters, is that there is no Black God. There's no God that cares about you. You are a bastard people. You don't have no connection to, all of that was just broken down. We were just completely broken down in that journey. Then by the time you get to these shores and you telling us to praise, hey, the only person that's going to save you from your enslavement is the one that oppressed you. How are we supposed to handle that?
Hey, brother, I say give us another 570 years on top of the 30 that we just got from them creating this initiative of racial justice in 93 to 30 years later, they painting Black, Asian, and Latino X Madonna and child. I think, with 600 years of global suppression and racism, right? And the minister speaks of that, right? With 600 years, everyone always talks about 400, but what's the 200 years of unwritten history when they were actually politicking it and figuring it out? We got 570 more years to figure it out. So our great-great-grandchildren may be able to, decades or years down the line, they may be able to rewrite the history that we know is underneath the Vaticans and all those other great monumental and historical places across the country. It's up to us to unearth our history. And we take this to reaffirm ourselves what the hints of truth that they have given us. It's not that it's not doesn't exist. It's literally in plain sight. Absolutely. And they have given us the tool to speak on this and use it to re-empower ourselves, because we never lost our power. We just got to assert it in the right direction. And I think having someone that looks like you would do something psychologically for you to feel as a whole person and valuable. So I take it, it took us and our artists to recreate our spiritual figures and beings in the light. Now we can acknowledge and at least say that the Catholic Church has somehow, some way, even if it's a small step, it's a step that they should have corrected 570 years ago. But look, we can take this ourselves to chase the equilibrium.
And then here's the thing, because I know some of the crew members, Corinna, are saying, well, what does it matter? Plumie Tart, you said, why does images matter? Again, you're talking to the people that is on the
everything.
I just think it matters because
it matters everything.
The same reason that Pepsi buys all the commercials for Super Bowl.
Images matter. Like we can't act like our people haven't suffered because of an image. We can't disregard that.
And also,
we might be at a place right now, right? Like this is 2023, so we all in a more than enlightened space, right? But think about back in 1950, 1980, 2000, where people really died thinking that whiteness would equate it to God or divinity versus understanding and seeing their blackness as being God and divinity. Like, think about that. Like all of our people who suffered psychologically as a result of that situation. Images matter. I'm sorry, y'all.
But Farajii, why are we so quick to push back and say, well, what does it matter, right? But there's no pushback on, well, why did they change the imagery in the first place? So that's kind of where I struggle. You know what I'm saying? And it's just now like they're putting whoever's face on there to be inclusive. Okay, I understand that. But it's important for us to just know history. So that's just my pushback. Are we going to start telling the truth about things? And I think it's something we should be proud of. Like, it's something that was forced upon us for us to believe. And I think we should be raising questions and have more pushback. Why would they make such an effort to change the story, to change history? We see that even now, present day, that's what's happening. So at the end of the day, what's the Catholic Church end goal here? I mean, it sounds like they're well-intentioned. That's yet to be seen how this is all going to play out. And I know everyone has their different point of views, but I think it's just so important that we keep that in mind, the historical aspect. It's important to know history, what it is, good, bad, and different, whether we like it or not. The truth is the truth, and we need to know what actually happened historically. And that's my pushback on this.
Absolutely. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, more conversation about race. As one of our leading Black men, Idris Elba, had come out in a recent interview and said he's not a Black actor. I'm going to share with you the details and the context in which he said that statement. Stay with us. That conversation is up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
The 54th NAACP Image Awards is airing live on February 25th, honoring outstanding performances in film, television, theater, music, and literature. But this year, Roland Martin Unfiltered is nominated for Outstanding News or Information Series or Special. To vote, head to NAACPImageAwards.net, scroll down to Outstanding News/Information Series, select the category. You have to click on hashtag Roland Martin Unfiltered Black Votes Matter Election Night Coverage. To submit your vote, you will need an email. Only one vote allowed per email. Voting ends on February 10th at 9 p.m. Vote today.
Folks, welcome back to the show. All right, as we talk about race, let's talk about what Idris Elba had to say about his race in the profession. You know, leading black male, Idris Elba is a heartthrob. He has been in some major blockbuster films, and he's also has directed and produced some smaller projects. He's at a level that a lot of black men from the UK may not find themselves in, but he understands the space that he's in. But according to a new interview that he did with the UK edition of Esquire magazine, Idris Elba is now pushing back on being put in a box and being called a black actor. Now, during this interview with Esquire UK, in which he explained why he no longer calls himself, take a look at this, and Keen, let's post this quote. Thank you, bro. He explained why he no longer calls himself a black actor, citing the fact that it was more harmful than helpful throughout the course of his career. He said, of course, I'm a member of the black community. You say a prominent one, but when I go to America, I'm a prominent member of the British community. Oh, UK's in the house. If we spent half the time not talking about the differences, but the similarities between us, the entire planet would have a shift in the way we deal with each other. Now, the actor is also has pointed out that he said that as humans, we are obsessed with race, and that obsession can really hinder people's aspirations, hinders people's growth. Now, take a look at this. Let's go to the next slide, if we got it. But he said that this obsession with race has hindered people's aspiration, hinders people's growth. Racism should be a topic for discussion, sure. Racism is very real. But he said, but from my perspective, it's only as powerful as you allow it to be. I stopped describing myself as a black actor when I realized it put me in a box. We've got to grow. We've got to. Our skin is no more than that. It's just skin. Rant over. He said, I did it acting because I thought that's a great profession and I could do a good job at it. As you get up the ladder, you get asked what it's like to be the first black to do this or that. Well, it's the same as it would be if I were white. It's the first time for me. I don't want to be the first black. I'm the first Idris. Bada boom, bada bing. Let's bring Corinna and Rashad back into the frame. Now, it's interesting. It's interesting. Let me throw this out there because y'all, both of y'all got the same damn faces. I understand. I understand, y'all. Look, I understand. You know, when you black actor, you like, come on, man, see me beyond my blackness, see me for the talent, see me for what I bring to the table, see me for what I'm doing for, you know, the genre, the profession. See me and not just the image that I see myself in, the skin that I'm in.
I mean, I understand too, Farajii, but my question is, like, who was his audience necessarily when he was doing this interview? Because I feel like Esquire magazine, Esquire UK, the UK Esquire. So, you know, it's still like very like high class men's magazine. You know, it's like. And who's usually reading that magazine?
I mean, I would assume men and women, but probably more. Yeah. Isn't it more men, Rashad? What you think?
I have no idea, brother. I'm from America and I'm from Baltimore. UK is a whole nother world for me. So I only can speak to proximity. I know what I know, and I know I don't know that. So
it's Esquire. I know what I don't know. Yes.
Okay. Well, here's my only thing, right? I understand too, but the thing is like to his he said something about, we're obsessed with race. Like, well, who the hell is obsessed with race? The people who invented the shit are definitely obsessed with race. I don't know if we are per se, but it's like I'll frame it this way, and I'm gonna put it the nice way. People do messed up stuff and then expect stuff not to be messed up. So they created this construct that is race. And now we had to push back. And it's like, yeah, I get the point, but we didn't create this social construct that they can't see past our blackness, that they can't see past our skin color. So yeah, oftentimes we're going to be referred to as, the first successful Black actor or whatever the case is. It's a damn shame that we're still in 2023 and we're still claiming to be the first. But, at the same time, why is that happening? So I do get his pushback. I don't want to be a Black actor. I don't think it's that serious, though, that you have to make a proclamation per se. Maybe right. I'm being a little extreme here, but I just feel like I love being melanated. Like, I was born Black and I will die Black, and I'm proud to be in this skin. And that's just been our history, because unfortunately what we have been subjected to beyond our control. So, why is there an obsession with race? We didn't create this construct that is.
I agree. Look, Janine checked in and said, Lord, not my baby daddy Idris.
I feel you, girl. I feel you. I felt the same way.
Baby daddy Idris.
I want to stay. I'm gonna stay in calm.
I just want to get this comment out.
She hit it,
she
bro.
said it's easy for him to have that perspective, not being American. But you know what? I've heard a lot of Black folks, and I get it. A lot of Black people in America don't want to be the black lawyer, Black actor, Black. You know what I mean? We don't want to always lead, and I get it. I truly get it, folks. I understand. You don't always want to lead with your Blackness. That's a part of who you are. That's who you are, right? But you just want to be seen for just what you do, for your skills and your talents and everything. And then Lori Parks, Lori, you brought it up. You said that they're supposed to be talking about making Idris the next James Bond. And guess what? White people are not happy about a Black man playing James Bond, a fictional character.
Mm-hmm. Isn't Reggae John, what's his name, Page from Bridgerton, up for that possibly too? And he's British, and he's
he was in the first season of Bridgerton, right?
That's I've heard and seen things that maybe he might be up for the part of James Bond too.
He's smooth.
Yeah. Do you think colorism might play a part in that, as far as like maybe...
Let me tell you something. Let me tell y'all something again. And then Rashad, I know you wanted to say something. Colorism plays a part in everything in this thing, man. Like we can't run away. We can't wish it away. We can't act like, well, I'm going to operate as if color doesn't exist, when the people and the systems around you are still operating that it does. You see what I'm saying? Now, we can have our own thought. We can live our life and say, no, I don't see race. I have this type of friends. I'm in these spaces. That's all well and good. But don't be so wrapped up in your own little bubble that you don't recognize that if the police pull you over as a Black man, they're going to treat you differently than they do a white man. You see what I'm saying? And you're like, well, I thought, because you're going to put yourself in a psychological conflict. That's what I'm saying. It's fine. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to leave my Blackness either. But at the end of the day, I do know that I'm a Black man. That if somebody say he's the first Black man to do bop, 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 it's like, that's just unfortunate. But that's color. Race is a huge, huge factor in this country. Rashad, yes, sir. What's your take, bro?
Two takes, and that's why I wanted to listen to y'all first. And reading from the excerpts that was shared, I understand this brother. One, I understand him in the space that he's affirming humanity over social constructs of race and ethnicity from what we perceive, right? And he's in another one, just who I am and how I practice being who I am every day. I read the language of it, and what I do in my methodology of civic engagement, youth engagement, and the work that I do in the nonprofit sector, he's coming from what we would consider a strength-based or aspirational lens. And what that does is it doesn't negate what the issue or the problem, and in this context, the problem is blackness, right? And it being used as a tool to box him into a certain character that will stifle his talent, right? Or his roles or accessibility. But what he's saying is the strength base is my talent is much greater than what you visually see of myself.
Right.
And then we got to accept our privilege of the network we're on and where we show up in context to where we're born. We're Americans. In context to those of in the British continent, it's a large population of melanated people. And I experienced this as I came back from Sierra Leone. I'm on the plane and we get off and we're coming back to the States. So we all going back, we're leaving Sierra Leone. And one of the young ladies says, she's jokingly, she said, oh, there's the Black Americans. And this young lady was what we assume is a melanated young lady. So she asked us jokingly, but seriously, who are you? And we knew exactly what she meant, right? And we're saying African American. And she says, well, can you attest to what land of Africa you're from? We don't know, right? So we asked her, who is she? She clearly says, and she lives in the UK. I'm Trinidadian, but my people and my lineage is from Sierra Leone, and I'm here. Those that are in the UK, they have a much stronger connectivity of their lineage and where their people was deported, kidnapped, and enslaved from, in context to our history that's being completely wiped away, right? So in his sense, he's attesting, I'm British, and I'm even understand my British privilege in context to when I'm in America. When I went to Sierra Leone, when you go to wherever we go out of this country, I'm not seen as a Black person. We're seen as American. My Black skin gave me more privilege than the Haitian brother that I was standing next to, and we look exactly the same. But because of my tongue, because of my dress, those folks knew there was a clear distinction. And I lived unknowingly in my American privilege and still with a contract that that's my brother because he looks just like me. And I think that's his assertiveness to it. I don't think the brother said anything and meant any harm. But once we start to understand the global perspective, we can assert our humanity that will debunk racism.
That's true. I love that point. I love that point. Thank you for sharing that, Rashad, because I think that drove home a couple of things for me. Corinna, what's your take?
I agree with Shai. I certainly don't think he meant any harm. And like to just take it a step further, I mean, if I was having this conversation the other night, like, you know, we were so many other things before we were even Black. That's another social construct that was like set upon us. So I do see like the bigger picture that he wanted to exert, like it's about me and my talent. I just think that it's unfortunate that we're forced in those positions to make those points again, because we have to prove ourselves, because the powers that be per se are the ones who created this social construct that we were just forced to be a part of and forced to live in. So, you know, I don't think he meant any harm, but yeah, initially I was just kind of like, you know, here we go again. If I was more kind of like bothered by the fact that the statement even has to be made, just given the, you know, our history, the historical aspect, how we're perceived, how we have to fight for different opportunities, and how we're still, you know, trying to make strides, and we're still seeing the first or whatnot of people of our culture, of our heritage, like in these, you know, prominent roles and positions. And we all know that really shouldn't be the case. But I do get where Idris is coming from, but it's still kind of like, you know.
Well, it hits a couple of things. One is, this is what John Boyega, y'all know who John Boyega is. He was a Woman King. He was in Star Wars. This was his response to let's post his tweet that he out there in response to it, because I think this is very interesting. And again, folks, what we're seeing from Idris Elba is a symptom, is an effect of a larger cause, right? The cause still being that white people have made race to be the prominent metric of goodness. That white supremacy has still made race as being the standard, right? But this is what John Boyega put out there. He said, quote, I think we should fixate on who is typecasting and putting actors in boxes because of this, not on making weird adjustments for them. He said, we continuously focus on what we have to do so they don't do this or that. Very worrying. We Black, and that's that. John is looking at it from, look, let's take Idris out of it, because he's part of an industry that will put you in a box. But let's look at the box makers.
Exactly.
Ding, ding. That's
exactly.
It.
We're not blaming the box
victimize the victim.
Exactly. That's the whole point.
Look at the box makers, man. The box makers are the ones who really we should be like, yo, why do you keep putting us in this? And I'm thinking about Franz Fanon, Rashad, where you putting us in this like double space of existence. Right? And get some level of economic or social upward mobility. And so we gotta like become like Play-Doh and reform ourselves and reshape ourselves to fit your needs. That's the box maker. They will put you in a state of confusion. The other thing is, I heard and read the story when he said, I'm not Black, I'm OJ. Okay. It's like that moment. That again, we're looking at the outgrowth. We're looking at the effect. But the real cause are the box makers who continuously put us in a space where we have to live this double existence. We're going to be the person deny some level of Blackness or deny this, and then to accept that. And it's causing us to just Idris Elba. Would you cancel him? And very quickly, we got like 30 seconds or so. But would you cancel Idris, Rashad?
No, sir.
No.
Simple and plain. No, I'm not counseling the brother.
Yeah, I love my people nonetheless, with a few exceptions, like maybe.
You said a few exceptions.
Yeah, like I don't even want to say his name, but Kanye. I mean,
okay, all right, we ain't talking about yo right now.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying a few exceptions.
You know what I'm saying? We ain't gonna get into him.
No one's really canceling.
Right.
Just don't really care for you right now, but yeah.
I got you, but we're not canceling Idris right now.
No, definitely not.
Oh, all right, cool. Hey, let's keep doing the work of being of tearing down the box makers. I appreciate y'all for joining me today. Enjoy the conversations. Again, Rashad, congratulations on your anniversary. Continue to do the work that you're doing. And Corinna, I know that you are just lighting it up right now. You're working on getting your degrees. You're trying to get in all types of spaces, from a lawyer to being an educator. I can't deal with you right now, but congratulations
one thing real quick,
again.
yeah. I am trying to increase that 2% of Black women that are attorneys in the United States of America. Only 5% of attorneys are Black, and only 2% are Black women. So I'm trying to study the system, understand it, so I can change it. So
there it is. My folks right there, Corinna, Rashad. Thank y'all so much for joining me for these conversations. And most importantly, thank you for being so good for the culture. Have a happy Friday, y'all, and great weekend.
You too.
Happy holidays for the culture.
Thanks, y'all.
Fridays are holidays. I'm telling you, you better celebrate them. You better count them.
It's true.
Absolutely. Happy holidays, Rashad. All right, folks. That's going to do it for us. I want to thank all my team, Joel, Keenan. I want to thank my control room and everyone for making the show possible. I want to thank all of you, my online culture crew, for having the conversations and being a part of the discussion. I want to thank my very special guest, Mr. Terrence Moore from Forbes.com, for being a part of the conversation. Super Bowl weekend is upon us. So, folks, that's totally up to you whether you want to see this historic Super Bowl. But I'm going to watch. I'm going to be honest with y'all. I'm going to watch. I'm going to watch Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts go out for it. But again, they are both winners in my book. But folks, I thank y'all so much for tuning in all week. We've had some dynamic conversations, some fantastic guests. And so if you've been enjoying it as much as I've been enjoying having these conversations, make sure you go over to our website, blackstarnetwork.com, show your support, financial support, sharing the content, and so much more. Subscribe, download the app on all of your devices, and most importantly, continue to support us, the great work that we're doing here. Because guess what? Every dollar, every cent, every view, every look, every share, every retweet matters in making this Black media digital platform successful. So again, check us out at blackstarnetwork.com. Also follow us on social media on IG and on Twitter at Black Star Network, and follows yours truly, me, Farajii Muhammad, on social media. You can find me on IG at The Real Farajii and on Twitter at Farajii as well. Stay tuned. In a little bit up next, we're going to be checking in with Big Brother Roland Martin for RMU. Make sure y'all check him out on in the next hour or so. And then also make sure that you vote for him. If you haven't voted for RMU for their outstanding election night coverage, make sure you do that. That way, Black Star Network can get a big win in getting an NAACP Image Award. So you can go to their website, you can check out the commercial and see how you can vote. I've already voted. Tell your friends and family to vote. Share it out among your personal networks, because we want to make sure that RMU gets its just due. All right, there it is right there. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk on Monday for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Have a safe and peaceful weekend, and we'll look forward to reconnecting with you on Monday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Peace.